Today is the 13th Sunday of Ordinary Time Year A. Show an act of kindness. My dear friends, there's a story that I read somewhere in a book that there is this lady who gave a story about how she developed the attitude of kindness and charity, and how he started an organization or joined an organization that was philanthropic. She was traveling by train at one time in Hamilton town in the United States of America. And then when she was about to board a train, there was this beggar who came to her and was trying to plead with her to give him something for the day. The lady looked at the man. She had pity on him. She sympathized with the situation. So she went down to her purse to remove some few coins to see how she can help this man. But you know what? She realized that her purse was open, the zip was open. So she was shocked. Looking inside, she realized that she has been robbed. Somebody took everything that she had. She was about to board a train and she did not have uh, even money to pay for it. This was before even the issue of the e-card and a smart card was invented. So this lady was in shock. The man could see how disappointed and shocked the lady was. So the lady was saying, "Oh, I've lost everything. Even I don't have anything to pay for my ticket." The beggar looked at the lady and said, "How much do you pay to your place?" And she talked of like around $5. The beggar dig down deep into his pocket and he gave the lady $5. The lady at some point she was hesitant to receive the money, but she had no option. She received it. And then off she got into the train and she went to take care of her elderly mother who was left alone in her house. Arriving at home, she started thinking about this man. And every time the thought of this man would come to her mind, who is this man, a beggar, who is able to help me when I am in trouble? I was about to help him, but I ended up being the one he helped. My dear friend, this lady, because of that experience, she volunteered herself and she joined a charitable organization and she became very active in giving to charities and helping people. And every time she would go and find and discuss in the boardroom about their organization, always deep in her mind, she would be thinking about this man. How can I help the man who rescued me from embarrassment at the bus station? So every time she would walk around that area, she would always be looking at the man at random, and she never saw him at all. So she joined this organization. She was working, and she was given to head an organization department, the charitable organization. And the department was to take care of or rehabilitating these people who are poor, and especially giving them dignity by building for them and giving them some source of livelihood, helping them start off a business and maybe moving them from the streets. So one time she went for a meeting, a serious meeting, and they planned on how they are about to help to start off helping 10 people to start off life. And she went to the same bus station. She was looking around. She felt somebody touching her. And looking back, it was that beggar. She was overwhelmed with joy. She looked at the man and said, "Wow, I've been looking for you many years." And the man said, "Oh, I've just been here, trying to look for arms and to survive." And the man took time with the lady and they sat over a cup of coffee and he narrated his story. He was once a very rich man, but one day the fire raised down his story and is a supermarket. And within seconds, he was a beggar from being a rich man. And that's why he's now in the streets. So he explained his story to the lady, and the lady was so much touched. The lady gave him one of the opportunity to be one of the people that the organization is going to help. And this man was very happy to hear that. So, the logistics were done. The man was resettled back. They started some small business for him. They built a good house for him. And the other man started life again, and he started having some dignity. The lady kept on coming to him and, seeing how he's faring. And the man regained his dignity back. So one time, the lady came to visit the man. They looked at each other, deep and direct to the eyes. And what was there? There was some attraction. The rest is history. They were wedded in a church, a few meters from the man's house. That is the fruit of kindness. My dear friend, the modern culture teaches us that we should avoid pain, struggle, and inconveniences. But the gospel today teaches us otherwise. You know, When a mother sacrifices her sleep for her child, when a father sacrifices his comfort for his family, when a missionary sacrifices security for the gospel, when a religious sacrifices marriage for the kingdom, this is what we call sacrificial love. My dear friend, every human being has a hierarchy of loves. We all love. We may think of our family, friends, some, they give us some comfort, some reputation, they give us some security. We even have some dreams as human beings. The quality of our lives depends on what we place at the end of our top. What is our priority as human beings? Jesus tells us today, whoever loves mother or father is not worthy of me. Whoever does not take up my cross and follow me, you know, cannot be my follower. Whoever loses his life for my sake will gain it. These are very strong words today. This is not a word from a dictator, but from a son of God, whose love for every relationship finds its place. St. Augustine, had a very beautiful quote that our hearts are restless until they find rest in Thee, O God. Everything in life, according to Augustine, becomes disordered when Christ is not a priority. My dear friends, during there's a story that I was reading also in another book about some people who are doing some exploration, and they got lost in the sea, the ocean, because there was storm and because the night came, and they did not the visibility disappeared, and landmarks disappeared, and every direction appeared to be identical, and they were lost in the middle of the sea. So one experienced explorer took a compass, these GPR, the phone maps to locate locality. And, he said that though the eyes cannot see, but he says your emotions cannot even guide, but we need to trust the compass. So the compass pointed to a direction that the others thought that is not the direction that it's supposed to follow. But you know what? He said, let us follow the compass. When your eyes cannot see and your emotions cannot guide, trust the compass. Others doubted the compass. They pointed to what appeared to be the most dangerous direction. The compass pointed a place where they thought that would not be the right direction. It is a dangerous area. So later, they said, okay, let us follow the compass. By good luck, they followed the compass and they arrived at their destination. My dear friends, how can you try something so small, yet every other indication suggested otherwise? This was the question that the other explorers asked him. And you know what? This man replied, because the compass is not influenced by the storm. My dear friend, many times the direction of our lives is influenced by storms that surround us. We are surrounded by so many storms and emotions, social pressures, fears, ambitions, and attachments. Christ is the compass, And if you follow Christ, you can never get lost. Jesus says, whoever loves me and loves my Father and loves me, it needs to know that he must hate his father and mother. It does not mean just direct hate. He means that we have to place Christ as the priority of our lives. He's not talking of loving the parents less, but he says that he loves him, loves the parents and the relatives better. Love for God helps us to love more, to love better. Thomas of Aquin explains that rightly ordered love is the foundation of all virtue. When God is the first, family becomes a place of grace rather than a possession. Friendship becomes gift rather than a friendship of idols. Ministry becomes service rather than self-promotion. Work becomes a vocation rather than obsession. Wherever, uh, wherever something occupies God's place, wherever, no matter how good and more important to us it is, it becomes destructive. Kierkegaard, one of the great philosophers, said that purity of heart is to will one being. So a Christian who wills one being to belong completely to Christ is a Christian who has direction, because all the other things follow. Whoever does not, Jesus said, whoever does not take his cross and follows me is not worthy of me. The cross is not merely a suffering. The cross is is accepting love, and is accepting love and being united with Christ, who also carried the same cross. John Paul II beautifully said that the cross is not the loss of life; it is the gateway to resurrection. Modern as I said, modern life teaches us to avoid pain. This is what Pope Leo is talking of in the encyclical that he released recently about Humanita Magnifica. What he says is that humanity is trying to run away from pain, and he admonishes human beings to know that pain is part of human life, and there can be no life without pain. And he tells people, don't run away from pain. This is what modern man is trying to run away from. This German theologian Bonhoeffer, who gave his life to Nazism, when he says that when Christ calls a man, he bids him to come and die for him. No, it's not necessarily physical death, but death to self, death to pride, death to resentment, death to greed, death to selfishness. Jesus gives a contradiction. Whoever gains his life will lose it, and whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. The world says, protect yourself, but Jesus says, give yourself to me. The world says, accumulate wealth, but Jesus says, share that wealth. The world says, be the first in everything, but Jesus says, become the servant of all. Mother Teresa of Calcutta reminded his sisters that a life not lived for others is not alive at all. Psychologist called Viktor Frankl, who survived the Nazi camp, has written a book on becoming human. And in the book, he says that the more one forgets himself by giving himself for the cause of another person, the more that person becomes human. So the gospel and psychology meet at some point, and we discover ourselves only when we give ourselves for others. This psychology gives that. Even the gospel gives that. An act of kindness, psychology says, has a ripple effect. When you do something good comes back to you. The first reading, a wealthy man recognizes the value of Elisha. The the wife of this wealthy man tells her husband, let us welcome this man. Let us show some kindness and some hospitality. They welcomed the servant of God. What happens? Hospitality became a channel for unexpected miracle. And what did they expect? The miracle? The wife got a son. She was barren for many years. But because of their hospitality and kindness, God rewarded them. So hospitality is not merely a social courtesy, it is openness to God's presence in the other person. St. Benedict had a rule, and the rule was, let every guest be received as Christ himself. Every act of welcome becomes an encounter with God. How many miracles are delayed because our hearts are too crowded with ourselves, too much full of ourselves? How many miracles are lost because of our own selfishness? My dear friends, Jesus concludes by giving out that whoever gives a cold cup to these little ones will be gifted. He does not mention, building big cathedrals or working extraordinary miracles for others or even healing others. He mentions a cold water. This means that God mediates grace differently from us human beings. Saint Teresa of Lisieux wrote that, and told she wrote in her book that miss no single opportunity of making someone some small sacrifice to make another person happy. My dear friend, they God's kingdom grows by small acts of love and acts of kindness. It grows when a teacher encourages a student. It grows when a nurse comforts a dying patient. It grows when a priest listens to his penitents and his Christians. It grows when a child forgives a friend. It grows when a family prays together. It grows when a religious silently serves the community. They are small acts, but they are eternal. My dear friends, say S. Lewis reminds us that no ordinary people show kindness and hospitality. It is for extraordinary people. And he tells us that every encounter carries eternal significance. In the second reading, there is a theological foundation of kindness and hospitality. And it tells that because we are baptized and united to Christ, so we must become like him. As Christ was kind and hospitable, we have to become like him. Discipleship is not merely an imitation, it is a participation in Christ's life. This is what second reading is telling us. So baptism is not an event, but a lifelong participation in Christ's life. Leo the Great exhorts his Christians to remember to remember their dignity. And my dear friends, there are many things that have happened, some good things have happened in the history of the world because of kindness. Because of kindness, my dear friends, we've seen many people getting blessed. You remember even Abraham and Sarah, his wife, they got a child because they invited God's angels without knowing. Kindness, my dear friends, has a ripple effect, has a direct benefit to whoever gives it. And my dear friends, today, as we go on with this celebration of this Sunday and this week, try this week to show some kindness to a person. And kindness does not mean to pay anything out to spend any coin, but kindness is just being there for the other. Can you open a door for a person who is struggling? Can you help a stranger? Somebody is trying to climb a bus and is unable, can you help that person to climb a bus? Can you say a kind word to a person who is depressed? Can you write a kindness note to a person who does not expect it from you? My dear friends, today there are so many questions that we have to ask. The families, do we place Christ at the center of our family, our homes? And who how do we place Christ as in the shadow of our families? When we plan for outings for our families, do we plan time for Christ? For the young people, when we are choosing careers, do we choose careers only for success or we choose careers that has God's purpose, God's work in it? For priests and religious, do we belong completely to Christ or do we just follow him for comfort and recognition? For believers, do we carry daily crosses with resentment or do we carry daily crosses with the trust in God? For there's this missionary who was called Jim Elliot who gave his life to proclaiming Christ. And then, Jim Elliot, he said, whoever has Christ cannot lose, my dear friends. The paradox, today teaches us, Jesus teaches us that when we welcome Christ, then we have everything. Do an act of kindness. And may God bless you all. Thank you.